I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome, everybody, to RealAg on the Weekend here on 980 CJME and 650 CKOM. Really appreciate everybody joining us here today. Hopefully you had yourself a great week. There's a lot that happened out there in Canadian agriculture. We're going to cover a lot of it here today on today's program of RealAg on the Weekend. If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us, Real Agriculture across all the different social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as TikTok. Or you can always just call the RealAg feedback line. Here's the beauty. You dial this number, you press the number 3, and you leave me a message. The number is 855-776-6147. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the budget that was released earlier this week by the federal government. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland outlining a quite large deficit, along with a whole bunch of items in the area of agriculture that we'll break down and review here today. We're going to hear from Jocelyn Wasko. She is a rancher down in East End, Saskatchewan. Some really bitter cold this week in parts of Saskatchewan that has really wreaked havoc when it comes to calving time. And if you're, calving in the back end of March, the last week of March, like we're hitting April this weekend. Today is April 1st, for goodness sakes. And we're seeing temperatures in the minus 10, minus 20. I think maybe even some parts we might have even touched minus 30, which is brutal. And it's not just the snow, it's actually also, it's the cold that has really hurt the ranching sector in the province of Saskatchewan. So we'll hear from Jocelyn and some of the struggles there. We're also going to hear today from the chair of Sask Wheat, Brett Halstead, will be with us. They made an announcement, over $460,000 going into some wheat research. There's 4 different pillars that they're working on. We'll hear from Brett on that. And then we're going to hear from Nathan Phinney. He is the president of the Canadian Cattle Association, the CCA. And we saw this week the announcement, actually it was yesterday, Friday, that the UK is going to join the CPTPP. This is the agreement that Canada has with 11 other countries. It was formerly called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So the CPTPP is going to let the UK in. Well, the Canadian cattle sector has some major concerns with that, and Nathan will tell us why. Let's start off the show by talking about the Canadian budget that was put out this week. It set out $43 billion in new spending over 6 years and a predicted $40 billion deficit for the 23-24 fiscal year. Now that's up from $30 billion projected last fall. There's a whole bunch of stuff that is in this budget, of course, like any other budget. And so you comb through it, you go with a fine-tooth comb, and you try to sort out what's agriculture, what's not, and what's important for you, the agricultural audience, to learn about. If you think about one of the big issues, it's actually out east. It's a big issue in eastern Canada, is what to do with some of that fertilizer money, the fertilizer tariff money that was collected by the federal government, and how the federal government was going to redistribute it back to the farmer. They decided to do that, put it through the off-calf program, which I am extremely disappointed in. And it's just the money should have been given directly back to producers. Now, some people have asked me, well, how come Western Canadian farmers aren't getting some of the fertilizer tariff money back? It really was a non-issue because Western Canada is not reliant, if at all, on Russian and Belarusian fertilizer. They have other sources for that fertilizer. So that's why Western Canada has been kind of left out of that. It's not really a political decision. That's sort of based on trade flows. One of the other big pieces of it was that Canadian dairy got a big chunk of money, $333 million over 10 years, beginning this year in 2023. The Dairy Innovation and Investments Fund is going to be administered by AAFC, and it will be used to support investments in research and development of new products that use solid non-fats, which is, of course, a byproduct of dairy processing, and they need to find some markets for this and how they're going to be using these milk solids in the future. If you remember back to the NAFTA renegotiation, what happened there was, at the time, USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue talked about how, hey, Canada, because they were fighting over dairy market access. The U.S. wanted increased access into the Canadian market. In Canada, it became a bit of a discussion about, hey, the U.S. is trying to end supply management. And I remember Sonny Perdue at the time, USDA Secretary, saying, Canada, you can keep your supply management, but you can't be exporting too. And one of the ways that Canada really kind of stubbed their toe, so to speak, here is that we were exporting milk proteins into Mexico, which is a major touchy subject for the Americans. It's obviously Mexico is just south of the U.S. The U.S. looks to export a lot of different dairy products into Mexico, and this may have been a little bit of a bad decision on Canada's part on that. Other things included in the budget that we saw was $57.5 million over 5 years, with $5.6 million ongoing to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to establish a foot and mouth disease vaccine bank. It's highly celebrated, actually, by the pork sector as well as the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. We also saw $13 million in 23-24 to increase the interest-free limit of loans under the Advanced Payments Program from $250,000 to $350,000. We saw a commitment to engage with the biofuels industry in the months ahead to explore opportunities to promote its growth in Canada. This was another item, no dollar figure attached to it, but definitely the commitment. There is some concern that Canada needs to find a way to compete with that Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, especially when it comes to biofuels. You know that there has been a massive announced expansion of the domestic crush capacity for canola in provinces like Saskatchewan. Key item there is that is all based, for the most part, that is based entirely on renewable diesel. Okay. And so that the whole biofuel sector, this is a critical piece to put this puzzle together as Canada tries to compete with some of those crushed soybeans south of the border when it comes to renewable diesel. Also saw $27.2 million over 5 years starting in 23-24 to Transport Canada to establish a transportation supply chain office to work with the industry and other orders of government to respond to disruptions and better coordinate action to increase the capacity and efficiency and reliability of Canada's transportation supply chain infrastructure. Well, I missed one here. A commitment to begin consultations this summer on the right to repair and interoperability of farm equipment, which is being welcomed by the Agricultural Manufacturers of Canada. This is one I've heard a lot about from Canada West Foundation. Carlo Date has talked about this. This is essentially allowing you not being locked into where you have, say, a certain brand of combine and having to use their header, basically allowing for flexibility and a little bit more of a la carte in terms of putting some of these components together. So right to repair essentially kind of making its way into this. Also a commitment to introduce amendments to the Canada Transportation Act to provide the Minister of Transport with the authority to compel data sharing by shippers accessing federally regulated transportation services. That's one we're going to hear more from some farm groups on. I think I've heard a few people sort of whispering in my ear that that needs to be a little bit more clearly defined going forward. And is that a good thing or a bad thing for farmers? Also, a commitment to introduce amendments to the Canada Transportation Act for a temporary extension on a pilot basis of the interswitching limit in the prairie provinces to strengthen rail competition. So a lot in this budget, and some of it very much agriculture related, and would love your reaction to what you heard or read in this budget. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from East End Saskatchewan rancher Jocelyn Wasko about the challenges of calving season in this cold weather. This is RealAg on the Weekend, and you're listening to 980 CGME and 650 CKOM.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith of RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern for The Agronomists, Canada's only live, interactive, agronomy-based show. Each week, we answer your most pressing questions with a rotating panel of agronomists, researchers, and extension staff from across Canada. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, or head to realagriculture.com/live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hey, I'm Kelvin Hepner, and I just wanted to give you a heads up about a new project that we are working on here at RealAgriculture together with the Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute, or CAPI. We're calling it the Ag Policy Connection. Stay tuned. The first episodes of the Ag Policy Connection brought to you by RealAgriculture and the Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute. They'll be showing up here on RealAgriculture and in your podcast feed on your podcast player shortly.
Welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend. This week on the Real Ag Radio podcast, I happened to talk to Jocelyn Wasko. She's a rancher from East End, Saskatchewan, about some of the challenging weather that ranchers have been facing this week during the middle, well, really kind of for many people, middle of calving season. And it has really provided a lot of hardship. Here's our conversation. Tough week. Mother Nature just doesn't seem to ever want to treat farmers in southwestern Saskatchewan very well.
No, I mean, I think we're going to be nicknamed the land of the extreme because we wanted moisture and Mother Nature's like, here's 3 feet of snow on the level until April 1st. Enjoy.
Yeah, crazy.
So yeah, it is a little crazy. It's getting old, the never-ending winter. We kind of feel like we're in Groundhog Day or something.
Well, and what's inopportune about the timing of that, you will take the 3 feet of snow, of course, but the problem is that this is all happening at the time of calving, which creates just immense struggles.
It really does. I mean, a lot of people in this area, we aren't set up, like we don't have calving barns. Our cows are expected to calve out on native grass in the hills, like ideally on green grass, bare ground. So right now we're just kind of like playing each day by ear, hoping that warmer temperatures are coming, some more bare ground comes. Like obviously our first and second calvers, we do have them set up in a barn because we have to assist them, from time to time. But our mature cows their only bare ground in their field is the feeding ground. We haven't even moved them onto the spring calving pasture yet. We can't actually access the gates because we've got about a 6-foot snowdrift in front from the roads being plowed. So yeah, it's been a lot of plan B, plan C, and wait and hope around here.
So is it what creates more issue? Is it the snow or the cold that we've seen this week?
Honestly, it's the cold. Like, we were minus 30 2 nights ago. We were minus 20 last night. And you just, like, what are you supposed to do with that? You're calving cows out on a section field. You're not going to rip through them every 3 hours on your mature cows. That's just, like, not what we're set up to do. So if they're born at night, you kind of go out in the morning. You're, like, hoping that something's alive. Our cows aren't going full bore yet. So we're thankful for that, but we're kind of any day now. We're just staring down, looking out across the fields of so much snow and like, oh, I don't know. It's going to be definitely something. We do have a nice little barn for the first and second calvers, so yeah, we've been keeping a really close eye on them, and they've been okay. Like you can put them inside and they get warmed up, but yeah, it's been such an interesting year.
And there's a difference between, say, minus 5 Celsius and minus 25 Celsius. That's a big difference when you're doing this kind of stuff.
It is. Anything below minus 10, you're just like guaranteed to kill them if they're born at night, and the mom's not like gonna wrap them up in a big pile of straw. So yeah, it is a huge difference, and it's been stressful for sure on everything.
Yeah,
not a lot of vigor with these calves.
Well, yeah, then that's the struggle, right? That's not because typically at this time of the year, this is abnormal. These are not typical weather conditions. Like in parts of the Southwest, people would be thinking about going seeding probably next week. Never mind 3 feet of snow on the flat.
I'm pretty sure we were in the field April 16th last year, and not even close. We can't even get the drill out of a snowbank right now. Like, this is just wild.
Just sort of buried. It does definitely, yeah. But that's one of the differences too. I think for the farming, when you're putting in your barley and stuff like that, you're going to have some good moisture to get that crop out of the ground. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, we are a mixed operation, and we are really looking forward to the growing season. We're actually going to start with some good moisture. When we were seeding last year, there was dust coming up behind the drill, so it definitely will be a better condition starting this year out. But yeah, we just have to survive calving season first, and yeah, we're trying to laugh about it, but it's not very funny.
How long will calving go on for you?
We will kind of calve everything, 80% of everything will be in April. And then we have some stragglers through May. So, we're about 2 months. Our heifers will be all wrapped up kind of mid-April here, other than the stragglers. So as far as intensive calving goes, we will have it all wrapped up before seeding starts. And then just with the purebreds, we do have to keep an eye on them. We have to tag and write down all of our data, of course, with our mature cows. But any of our commercial cows, they kind of start middle of April here, thank goodness. But they do it on their own. So,
yeah,
we kind of check through every 2 days or so and just make sure everything's going well there. So, yeah, it's just kind of right now with the heifers, and then worrying about those purebreds because, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and with all of this stuff, like you said, when when you really get into the heart of the calving season, it comes fast and furious.
Yeah, it really does. And we're just really hoping that Mother Nature smartens up before everything starts going full bore here with those mature cows. Yeah. I mean, we've been looking at the forecast and it keeps saying it's going to happen, and then you wake up and it's minus 17. So, I don't know when these melting days are coming. Part of me wants it to warm up slowly, and so that it really soaks into the ground. But I think I'm past that now. I just want it to be gone. I'm sick of the snow.
Well, because the reality here is that for every calf that is lost, that's you're waiting for another year before that revenue comes around. It's a significant loss. It's not just, hey, calf lost and feel bad about it. There's more. There's a business side of this too that really, really starts to impact you at some point.
Exactly. And right now we're looking at some really good futures. There's some optimism in the cattle industry. So now you really want them to be alive. You want that live calf, and everyone that you lose, you're just okay, that wasn't a $1,200 calf. That's maybe an $1,800 calf now that you've lost. So, and then on the purebred side, you got a whole nother side to it, right? Like some of your top cows that always calve first in the top of the cycle there. Those are some pretty pricey bull calves that can get lost in the cold. It's tough to lose them. It takes a long time to recoup those costs, and to no fault of their own. So you're not going to get rid of that purebred cow because she calved in a minus 20 April 1st day. So you got the carryover of the cow too, and all those costs, and she doesn't have a calf inside. So yeah, it's a lot to think about for sure, and a lot to deal with.
Yeah, no fault of the mama cow at all, just fault of Mother Nature. When do you remember a spring like this?
I moved here, I think 2011, and it was like this. And we had so much snow. I don't think it held on this long, but there was this much snow. It probably melted at about March 20th, a more reasonable time. I don't ever remember in my history of actively ranching having this much snow in the spring. I even was going back through some old pictures and bare ground. So yeah, as far as my kind of shorter history, you talk to some of the old guys and they're always referencing 2011, 12, 13. So I don't know. Maybe that means that we're in for a wetter year because those were some pretty good growing years too. So I'm trying to be positive about it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Jocelyn, appreciate you joining us here this week. I know it's really it's a harsh week trying to get everything done and keep these calves alive. So all the best to you, you and Trav, and stay upbeat. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Shaun. We'll talk to you soon.
The crazy thing is that although it's warmed up over the weekend, you look at the forecast for next week in East End, Saskatchewan in particular, where Jocelyn ranches with her husband Travis. We're still getting down to minus 15 and minus 12 next week on Tuesday, Wednesday. So, man, Mother Nature, come on, smarten up. We need some warmer weather as we're into April now. Let's get to it. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Real Ag on the weekend here on 980 CJME and 650 CKOM right after this.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Whether you're seeding, harvesting, or anything in between, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has you covered. Timely agronomic information from industry experts available online anytime. Give your wheat crop a good start and a great finish with the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by C&M Seeds, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission.
Welcome back to Real Ag on the weekend. On Friday, we saw an announcement that the UK is looking to join the CPTPP. Of course, Canada is a part of that agreement. It's given us fantastic access into Asia for some proteins like pork and beef. Now, one of the issues here is with the UK potentially joining, the Canadian beef industry has some major concerns, and if they're not addressed, groups like CCA will actually lobby for this to be defeated in the Canadian Parliament. To find out more about why CCA is so upset, I had a chance to discuss this with the president of the CCA, Nathan Phinney.
Well, we are very disappointed, with the announcement that came out in this market access agreement for the UK. As we know, we've been battling hard and negotiating with them since the CETA agreement was in, when they were still part of the EU, to get some of our regulation barriers rectified so that we could have even flow and reciprocal trade, and that hasn't happened. So we feel strongly that by them joining is undermining the ambition that the first groups to get into the CPTPP were, and Canada was one of the first to ratify as well. So we were hoping to see that the same level of trade and free flow of trade ambitions were going to be met by those that are already in the deal, and clearly they're not. They're lowering the standards on it.
So is the concern that the UK was let into the agreement, or is it more a concern regarding the Canadian government not insisting on there being increased market access for Canadian beef into the UK?
Well, I think if they wanted to be in, we've got no problem with people joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership as long as they come in with the same, trading goals and ambitions that the people have. And, the UK potentially could be a good trading partner. The issue we have is, they've still, till this day, have not accepted our full systems approval for the way we process our beef, and the livestock growth proponents technology is another issue that they're not accepting. So it's not reciprocal trade, and we're at a very lopsided side of the spectrum here.
Yeah, is the processing issue carcass washing, or is there something else?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. It's just not that there's anything wrong with the UK system, but we take an extra layer of precaution when we process our beef, and that's been the major issue. So we can talk about tariff quotas, tariff rate quotas. We can talk about the amount of back and forth, but until those are actually rectified and seen in the UK as being acceptable practices, we're not getting anything there.
Probably something else that has beef producers in Canada somewhat concerned is that there obviously is the export issue into the UK, but Canada seems very welcoming to import UK-based beef. In 2022, the UK exported 4,414 tons of beef to Canada, worth about $33.2 million Canadian. While, of course, Canada did not export any beef to the UK. Not exactly a reciprocal relationship, Nathan.
No, it isn't. I mean, and you laid it out very well. There's not a whole lot more to say on that. I mean, they've got, under the temporary agreement, when they separated, they have Canada at a 0% tariff rate, and they have unlimited access into Canada. And we have a 0% tariff rate, but we have limits on our tariff rate quotas. And then we've had this regulatory issues on top of it that haven't been solved. So, but yeah, you laid it out very well. That's why we're not too happy with this move today.
So what are the next steps for CCA? You've made it clear that you're not happy with this. There will need to be ratification in Canadian Parliament. Can we expect CCA to be a bit of a noisemaker on Parliament Hill when it comes to the approval or disapproval of the UK joining?
Well, I guess plainly put, if the government of Canada brings us to this ratification bill to Parliament without addressing the UK barriers to Canada beef, we will certainly be approaching all parliamentarians to defeat this bill. That has been a point of a major issue with us now since 2017, and we're diving into this further and further down the road, and this has never been solved. So we enjoy good, free, and open trade, and that's why we were so excited when the CPTPP was ratified, and it has served us very well with the members that are in there. And it is free, an open market trade. It's reciprocal. But this right here is kind of a shot that it isn't now with the UK. And is this going to lower the standards of what that deal is actually meant to set out to do? So, again, if this doesn't get addressed, we are certainly opposing that this gets ratified.
When you talk to the Minister of Trade or the Minister of Agriculture, are they working on it? Do they hear that this is a priority for the Canadian cattle sector, or what kind of response do you get back? It ultimately it's no surprise that this is our issue. We've been saying this now for going on 6 years that this isn't working. And, until we actually got into the deal and had some numbers, it really now highlights the imbalance. Exactly back to your last point of $33 million coming in and zero going over there from Canadian beef. So it is extremely hard to know where the holdup is, but we would really like to see, our government get behind us and get this ratified, get this fixed, get the system's approval and the growth proponents, accepted into the UK. And, if they take those down, we're fine with bringing them on so that we can have full and open trade. Does the UK treat Canadian beef imports differently than, say, the Europeans do under our CETA agreement? Is the bar higher in the UK?
Oh, I don't think it's any higher. But I can say that they wouldn't have to worry about it, given how there's zero beef going in there. It's been kind of a non-factor, Shaun, of what they do with it. So I think there's different systems in each country, but they need to be recognized of what ours actually are, and that's where we're falling short of realizing that Canada has the gold standard of a food safety system.
Yeah, you're, of course, a beef producer yourself. Take your CCA president hat off for a second. I can tell that this doesn't sit very well with you as a producer of safe Canadian beef. No,
it doesn't. I mean, our product is world renowned. It's sought out by many other countries that we do business with. And, we're always trying to diversify our markets. And, we would love to diversify and be part of the UK market. In this geographic climate that we're all in, the more trading partners you have, the better. The quality trading partners that you have are better. But when we're seeing that there is product unlimited access coming into this country from a country that we can't get a pound into, is very, very disappointing.
We've been talking to the president of the Canadian Cattle Association, Nathan Phinney. Nathan, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, Shaun. Thank you.
It totally makes sense why groups like CCA are so upset. If we're going to be importing beef from the UK, we surely should be able to export beef back into the country. That's what trade is all about. We'll be right back on RealAg on the weekend here on 980 CJME and 650 CKOM.
Want to get the best out of your soybean crops? Whether you've been growing them for a generation or are just starting into soybeans, find what you need to know at soybeanschool.com. You'll see videos on growing tips, pest control, and much more from specialists across the region, all in one place. Easy for you to access from your desktop, tablet, or mobile phone. Maximize your yields by staying up to date with the Soybean School, presented by BASF, Pride Seeds, and Syngenta Canada.
Before you get back in the field this year, spend some time with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Get all the information you need on hybrid selection, planting depth, crop inputs, and more from a wide range of industry experts. A massive library of video content is available on demand when you need it most. Spend your time outside of the field, inside the classroom, with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome back to Real Ag on the weekend. This week we saw an announcement from Sask Wheat, an announcement of $467,000 going to research for wheat production. Here to talk about it is the chair of the Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission. It is Brett Halstead. Brett, Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission committed $467,000 to 4 research projects funded through the Alberta Agriculture Funding Consortium, AFC, for the 22-23 crop year. Talk about where this money's going.
Yeah, Alberta Funding Consortium, we co-fund with them. It leverages other funds by working together with the Alberta groups that are involved in that, and they in turn work with us in some Saskatchewan projects. And I think it's pretty important. There's some things that affect all Western Canadian farmers, so wheat farmers. So it's good to work together on these projects. And these agronomic projects, they support the work that our Western commissions do on funding our variety development. That has a good return of 33-1 for Saskatchewan wheat farmers. And that's what you get by supporting Sask Wheat with your levy dollars.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest this is your checkoff dollars at work, so to speak. One of the projects funded is the Prairie Crop Disease Monitoring Network. Of course, when we're talking about trying to understand the movement of pests, the population of pests, the Prairie Crop Disease Monitoring Network really is a key part of those observations. Absolutely,
the pests don't know these borders, and so it's good to try and get an early handle on what's coming and what areas are going to be affected most.
Yeah. The second of the 4 was dissecting herbicide resistance in wild oats to design novel, efficient molecular diagnostic tools. Sounds very scientific and above my pay grade. But herbicide,
mine too.
Yeah, but herbicide resistance is, not just in oats, but across the board. We talk about kochia as an example. This is an issue that growers are dealing with now and seems to be increasingly into the future.
Absolutely. So it's a good idea, and the scientific end of it, plus just where the problem areas are. So but this is more about the scientific stuff, and just like you, that's a little beyond my pay grade, and my level of expertise, but it's good and important to know that work's getting done.
Yeah. One of the third of the four was understanding the interactions of nitrogen fertilizer technologies with fungicides and the soil microbiome to optimize sustainable agriculture. This is an interesting one. So, of course, there's a lot of focus right now from a research perspective going into sustainability and this kind of thing. But this is kind of trying to understand how these different areas interact with each other. Kind of 1 + 1 + 1 = 5, so to speak, it sounds like. Definitely an important focus for Sask Wheat and the grower.
Absolutely, and there's more and more focus on sustainable agriculture. Farm groups and farmers involved in them strongly believe we are sustainable and we're doing good work there. That doesn't mean we don't continue to look at ways to try and do it better, and that's what research like this is about.
Yeah, the press release that you sent out earlier this week, the number that the $467,000 is one thing, but it was the mention at the bottom that Sask Wheat has committed over $6.6 million to 56 projects since 2016. That is a staggering amount.
Yeah, and that's just the AFC projects, the Alberta Funding Consortium projects. So it's very important. We co-fund and we work together with other organizations. This allows us all to get our hands on more and better research by working together with the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission and others in Alberta.
Yeah, because you said, a lot of these issues, they cross borders. Saskatchewan's issue, issues that we would find in Saskatchewan they don't stop at Lloydminster, right? They're very, very much prairie agricultural issues. So it does make sense that different stakeholders in these regions would work together to leverage those dollars.
Absolutely. We continue to work together on all types of research projects, getting to know each other in the organization and doing whatever work's necessary to try to not duplicate or work against each other, but work for some of the same goals.
Yeah. Hey, Brett, well, I got you. Any reaction to this week's federal budget? Did Sask Wheat have any thoughts about it, or what did you see as a farmer?
I didn't spend a lot of time dissecting it. We did have some meetings this week, so I hope to get a little more in-depth on that. We're closing out the feedback on the Sustainable Agriculture Strategy, which we have significant worries on. So we're getting that wrapped up this week, and we'll get a little more in-depth on the budget, I guess, now that I'm back to the farm and we get some of the other work done.
On the Sustainable Agricultural Strategy, are there items that specifically you can talk about that are concerning to Sask Wheat?
Well, just general, the feeling that farmers who make these decisions and important decisions on their farm may lose their competitive advantage or become even less competitive worldwide because, significant amount of our competitors don't have some of the same regulations we're doing and that we're talking about doing. So, and we compete in a global marketplace, so I think it's critical that farmers be engaged on this, not just this part of the feedback session, but going forward, and we're not shocked or competitively disadvantaged any further than we already are with new regulations.
We've been talking to Brett Halstead. He is chair of the Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission. Hey, Brett, thanks so much for joining us here today.
You bet, Shaun. Thanks. Talk to you again.
That's all the time we have today for Real Ag on the Weekend on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for getting real and getting connected with Real Agriculture.